Have you ever wondered about the difference between living in Rittenhouse Square and living in Fitler Square in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? Which is better and where should I live? If that's you, this video is for you. We're going to take a deep dive into the similarities and differences between these two neighborhoods, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, this is Chris Furman and welcome to my channel, Living in Center City, Philadelphia. If you are hoping to make a lifestyle change and are trying to figure out where to live and if Center City is right for you, this is the channel for you. So make sure to tap that subscribe button below and click the notification bell right next to it so that you're notified each and every time we put out a brand new video for you. And we actually get a lot of people reaching out to us that are looking to relocate to the Center City, Philly area, and we love helping them out on their journey. So if you're thinking about making a move, have any questions about the particular neighborhoods, condo buildings, the market here, really anything at all, the lifestyle, what's going on the ground in Philly, don't hesitate to reach out. Just shoot me a quick email to chris@meetchris.com. And by the way, I've lived in various parts of Rittenhouse Square, have my office in Rittenhouse Square, and am essentially in Fitler Square daily, so I know both of these neighborhoods very well. So let's dive into Rittenhouse versus Fitler Square. So first off, these two neighborhoods border one another, so these areas can only be so different. However, it does depend on which part of which neighborhood you're comparing, obviously. And in case you don't know much about Philly, really at all, a lot of the small neighborhoods here, or large neighborhoods, depending on how you consider them, in the city can have their own micro areas or micro neighborhoods within the neighborhood. So living on one street in Rittenhouse can be very different than another street on Rittenhouse. Meaning there are some streets in Rittenhouse and Fitler Square that essentially have zero difference from one another. Now the nature of every comparison is obviously beyond the scope of a 10-minute video, so take some of these things with a grain of salt and some of these will be generalizations. You really have to see the areas and walk the particular streets to know where you may want to live. And if you're coming into town, just send me a quick email. I would love to help you find the best area for your family and show you some of the hidden wonders of these areas. These are both amazing locations. Speaking of location, let's talk about that. Rittenhouse and Fitler Square are located in Center City, Philadelphia, and are known as some of the best neighborhoods to call home in the city. And consequently, some of the most expensive real estate in all of the city is here in Rittenhouse and in Fitler Square. Rittenhouse is the area surrounding the Rittenhouse Square, the very popular 7-acre green and open space park to relax and enjoy the city in. Parts of Rittenhouse are going to be extremely urban, very dense, in particular closer to Market Street and closer to Broad Street. Those are going to feel very dense and very urban. Now you're going to have a more residential feel on the southern end for sure, or really anywhere around the square, the actual park itself. So here's where we find one of the first main differences between these two areas. Fitler is going to be less urban, less dense, not many high rises at all. Really, there are only a couple condo buildings in Fitler Square, whereas Rittenhouse has the most condo buildings in the city in any particular neighborhood. Most people live in a condo if they're in Rittenhouse. So it's going to be a very different feel. So Rittenhouse is going to be where there's more hustle, more bustle, and all of that going on. Feel more urban, more dense. Fitler Square, more low-key, less urban. So depending on what you want, that's what you're going to get in these particular areas. Now, of course, like we've already talked about, they're very close. They're bordering. They're neighbors. So if you like to be around the urban and dense, but don't necessarily want to live there, maybe Fitler Square makes more sense. But if you want to live in that urban and dense environment, have that vibe, and be able to walk out and enjoy obviously the nightlife of all of that, you might want to live in Rittenhouse. Now, speaking of nightlife and restaurants and things like that, Rittenhouse is going to have way more options. Now, Rittenhouse is bigger than Fitler Square, just geographically speaking, but Rittenhouse, again, is where all the nightlife is, right? The hustle and bustle. So there's going to be a lot more restaurants, cafes, bars, all of that in Rittenhouse. Fitler Square does have its fair share. There are restaurants, cafes, coffee shops, etc. in Fitler Square. It's just going to be a lot less than in Rittenhouse. Now, if you're in Fitler Square, if you buy a home in Fitler Square, if you live in Fitler Square, you can still walk easily to many of those cafes, coffee shops, and restaurants in Rittenhouse. But if you want to be literally steps from the nightlife, maybe Rittenhouse will be a better option for you. Whereas if you want to be a little bit removed from that nightlife, but still have access to it, then Fitler Square maybe is going to be a more convenient area for you to call home. The next thing to compare is congestion. Now it's kind of obvious because we've already mentioned that Rittenhouse is more dense, more urban, right? But there's going to be more people in Rittenhouse. There's going to be a lot more people walking around Rittenhouse than there will be in Fitler Square. Because again, there's less density in Fitler Square. In Rittenhouse, you're going to have a lot of the condos, like we talked about, the high rises. But in addition to just more people living in Rittenhouse per square foot, you're also going to have more people visiting and trafficking through Rittenhouse than you will in Fitler Square. Again, even though they're bordering their neighbors, Fitler Square is much more removed from the hustle and the bustle. So if someone's coming into town that doesn't live in either of these neighborhoods to go out to a bar or restaurant, they're obviously going to be, well, they're not obviously, but they're primarily going to be coming in to Rittenhouse rather than coming into Fitler Square to go to a coffee shop, to go to a bar or a restaurant or things like that. So therefore, if you live in Rittenhouse, you're going to get that vibe. There's going to be a lot more people around you walking around. So if you want less people, less congestion, Fitler Square could be a better option for you. Again, all of the nightlife and the amenities of Rittenhouse is easily within walking distance. But if you don't want to live in that type of environment, then Fitler Square is possibly a better option for you. All right, let's talk about public transportation. In my opinion, public transportation is going to be much better in Rittenhouse Square. Though again, it kind of does depend on which particular part of Rittenhouse versus which particular part of Fitler Square that you're in. But for the most part, in general, being in Rittenhouse is going to have more convenient access to public transit. Public transit is all throughout the city of Philadelphia, but there are a lot of those stops, the particular access points to the subway in Rittenhouse versus Fitler Square. So there's much more availability of entrances and exits of that public transit, in particular for the subway system. So if public transit is your thing, if you really want convenient access to public transit, Rittenhouse is probably a better option for you. That being said, both of these areas are extremely walkable, so you might not need public transportation if you live here. So it just depends on what your needs are. If you have to use public transit for work, obviously that's one thing, but if you're only using public transit, or if you're thinking that you only need it for maybe going to the grocery store, you probably don't. So if you want to live in Rittenhouse, or if you want to live in Fitler Square, you're still going to have access to both of those features and benefits that you don't necessarily need to have access to public transit, meaning you can walk to grocery stores in both neighborhoods, so on and so forth. All right, let's talk about housing. We've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but just a quick recap and a little bit more detail here. In Rittenhouse, you will have a lot more condo options. It's going to be more dense, more high-rise buildings and whatnot. There are some townhomes, just not many, and townhomes in Rittenhouse and Fitler can be very expensive. So a lot of people can afford to be in Rittenhouse because there are condos that are more affordable. If there were no condo buildings in Rittenhouse, probably half the people that live here would not be able to afford to live here because townhomes are just very expensive. Now in Fitler Square, you will have some condo options, but the majority of your options in Fitler Square are going to be townhomes. So if you really want a condo, you'll only have about 2 options in Fitler Square. So you're probably going to be primarily considering Rittenhouse if you want condo living. So 1-story living, front desk, those types of amenities. If you want 1-story living in Fitler Square, you're basically going to have 2 options here. And they're good options, but you're just going to have less options. So that's what's going on with the housing in these particular neighborhoods. Another point of comparison is green space and open space. Now, both of these areas have great access. Obviously, in Rittenhouse, you have the big 7-acre green space, Rittenhouse Square. But in Fitler Square, you have the massive Schuylkill River Trail, park, and all of that that's located, or at least the trail it's not only in Fitler Square, the trail goes up and down Philadelphia for a lot of miles. But there's the park here and access to the trail in Fitler Square. So if you want that massive amenity of the Schuylkill River Trail and park and all those things, which is in my opinion, one of the best amenities, best outdoor amenities in all of Center City is right here in Fitler Square. So if you're a big outdoor buff, if you love being on the trail, riding, bike, or jogging, or if you have a dog, there's amazing dog parks here. If that's you, then Fitler Square is probably the better option for you. Now, of course, Rittenhouse isn't too far. In particular, if you're on the western edge of Rittenhouse, you can easily get to the Schuylkill River Trail, because Fitler Square is just to the west of Rittenhouse, and then the Schuylkill River Trail and Park is just to the west of Fitler Square. So if you're on the western edge of Rittenhouse, you can easily get to the trail. Now, even if you're a little bit further east in Rittenhouse, it's still not that far to get to the trail. But if you want to be within minutes or literally walk right out your door into the park, then Fitler Square may be a better option for you. Again, you really can't go wrong with either neighborhood, but hopefully that helps with some comparison here. Choosing a particular area to call home really comes down to the lifestyle that you're looking for. Obviously, we've been describing a lot of lifestyle benefits and amenities like we just talked about with the Schuylkill River Trail and Park, but it's all about the lifestyle. So let's talk about this a little bit. Well, Rittenhouse, as we've already kind of been discussing, there's more activity, more hustle and bustle, right? So you're gonna feel that if you're living there. Even if that's not your pace of life, you're gonna still be in that environment. If you want a more laid back, more mellow environment, pace of life, that's Fitler Square. Fitler Square is still again gonna have some amenities, restaurants, coffee shops, cafes, and so on and so forth, but it's gonna be much more mellow. There aren't going to be massive restaurants with bigger lines or, lots of people in the area. Fitler Square is going to be much more scaled back. And in particular, some areas a lot more than others. But if you want that more mellow lifestyle, that relaxed pace of life, Fitler Square might be a better option for you. Now, again, you can still have that in Rittenhouse in certain parts of it. But if you're, let's say, living right on the square, it's an amazing place to live right on the square. But it's not for everyone. Some people don't want to be able to walk right out their door, their condo building, and see, 100 people or however many people are in the square that particular day. Now, it's not necessarily going to feel like that. So you can still be in Rittenhouse on the square and still have a great experience. But some people that I take around to different areas like the more mellow, the more chill vibe of Fitler Square. So they're both great neighborhoods, but I would say Fitler is more mellow, more laid back, more low key. And if that's the lifestyle that you're looking for, Fitler Square could be a better option for you. If you're enjoying this Philly neighborhood comparison video so far and want to see me do other neighborhood comparison videos, just comment below and let me know which neighborhoods you'd like me to compare to one another, and I'll consider doing them. Also, I always have off-market or private listings available that you will never see on Zillow or the internet. If you want to be added to my off-market property email list, please email me at chris@meetchris.com and I can add you to that. All right, let's talk about demographics. This is another point of comparison that's very different, in my opinion, in Rittenhouse versus Fitler Square. Now, both areas obviously are expensive. We've already talked about that. So you're gonna have more affluent folks living in Rittenhouse and Fitler Square in both areas. But you're gonna have more families in Fitler Square. Primarily it's because it's more low key, there's more townhomes. It's just a very good environment, in my opinion, for families in this city. Rittenhouse, you're gonna have a lot more 1 or 2 bedroom condos that just don't necessarily fit a bigger family, a family of 2, right? So you're gonna have less families in Rittenhouse, more families in Fitler Square. Both areas still affluent. Now in Rittenhouse, you're also gonna have a lot more young professionals or graduate students or medical professionals, more young folks basically still pursuing their career, maybe getting their MBA at Wharton, Penn School of Business. A lot of them live in Rittenhouse, or maybe they're doing their residency or in medical college living in Rittenhouse, or maybe just going to Penn or Drexel as an undergrad student. A lot of them still do live in Rittenhouse. So in Rittenhouse, you're going to have many more college students here for sure than in Fitler Square. So there's going to be some differences. Everyone that, in my opinion, I think both areas are great. But if you want more families, maybe a little bit of an older crowd, not necessarily much older, but less college students, less young professionals and things like that, Fitler Square could be a better vibe for you. And if you're wondering about safety is of course a determination you must make, and you have to feel safe in wherever you call home. But in general, most people, most clients that I take through both of these neighborhoods consider both of them very safe. Most people consider these particular neighborhoods the safest neighborhoods in all of the city, in all of Center City in particular. Of course, go look at crime stats, and I can send you some of the data that I look at and compare neighborhoods if you want. But most people consider these particular parts of the city some of the safest neighborhoods to be in. And if you want to learn more about the Schuylkill River Trail, Park, etc., which is the best amenity in all of Center City, in my opinion, just click here. Click the image and enjoy.